Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're watching the State of the Nation. This morning here on the broadcast, we are joined by Professor Peter Kagwanja, the Deputy Party Leader, PLP. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning, Ayub.
Lovely having you on the broadcast.
Me too. Yeah. A lot of greetings from the mighty county of Muranga.
Mighty county, yeah.
Sheila Olang also joins us this morning. Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning, Ayub.
Many thanks for your presence here on the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Council Harvey. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are the cows in Migori?
They are brilliant.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. I saw that. Okay. I saw him on X looking after his camels inside the farm. Pretty good business. Yeah. If there's anything I wanted to be was a cattle rancher. Then politics got into the way. Anyway, good morning.
To you too.
I'm delighted for you to have invited me here, to my colleagues and my friends. Should say thank you to Harambee Stars for making our lives much more easier in Nairobi and Kenya. Na wakule ongezwe ifanywe milioni 3 wamalize. Kenyans have a way of, when you give them an incentive, and I think this is across the board, I think if we incentivize Kenyans step up to the plate.
They deliver.
When we get an opportunity, we're given an incentive, we work hard to win. And when there's no incentive and there's state rot and all these things, then things go down. Anyway, that's my bit for the morning.
Okay.
Sunday.
Many thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Much appreciated. And a lot has happened this week. So let's begin with the latest. And this is America's damning report on Kenya's impunity. According to the papers, the report by the State Department has condemned Kenya's worsening human rights record, citing attacks on the administration's critics, particularly last year's bloody anti-government demonstrations, cases of extrajudicial killings, disappearances and abductions, torture, transnational repression, what's happening in Uganda, Tanzania, including opposition leader Kizza Besigye, who was abducted from before he was presented before a military court in Uganda. Also, this week has seen the president's statement yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, when he said the bicameral parliament through the House committees that are charged with the responsibility of oversight have turned into money-minting operation centers, as well as the compensation scheme by the government of those who have been affected by the brutality meted on them, which has fueled a storm over justice and politics. Full plate to discuss here, but first beginning with you, Sheila. What do you make of these concerns that are raised over the state of human rights in our country?
I think they're very valid concerns. Sometimes I worry that the approach of the state is really one to wish it away or just be silent on it and hope that that will fix it. We saw last year and this year as well that first you had human rights activists who some were abducted, some were unfairly, tortured, forced disappearances and the likes of them. Now we're having a lot of discussion about compensation, especially for the victims of the protests last year. But we are not hearing enough about justice. So we're having compensation, but I'm yet to see one person who has been held accountable for everything that happened last year, right? And that is worrisome to me because you cannot just kill and then pay. That doesn't make any sense. Monetary compensation is a very singular aspect of the whole package of justice. It is just one aspect of it, but we want to see an equal measure, an equal plan of the justice process. So who are the perpetrators? What has happened to them since then? And this is not just about the victims of the protests. This is also, as we saw when other citizens seek refuge here, we're becoming an unsafe place, which is very, very worrisome. Because as Kenyans, there will be a time when you feel that your rights are not violated and you will move to our neighbors in Tanzania and Uganda. And we would hope that, you would not be repatriated back to Kenya to face unfair charges and the likes of them. So I think what bothers me so much is the silence on, you had 60 people dead, we don't have answers. Even on the case of, some were quite straightforward, like the Boniface Mwangi case, and thank goodness we had evidence. Last year, the BBC expose showed us who these people were, and to this day, nothing much. We asked for, that we do not want, I think the courts came out and said, you cannot be in unmarked cars, civilian clothing, not be able to be identified. And guess what happened this year? Sabasaba, 99 Koinange,
Yeah.
you had Subarus coming in and doing the same thing. A 12-year-old girl is dead while she was watching TV in her living room, in her safe space. So you cannot just give the mother of a 12-year-old money and wish it away. She needs answers.
Okay. Counsel, this harsh verdict from Washington is more or less same in degree and in breadth with the domestic harsh verdict, is it? Especially what the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has documented.
You see, the indictments that the Kenya Kwanza administration faces, and we must emphasize, and to that extent, at a later point in time, I will want to fault President Donald Trump's condemnation of Kenya. It is not Kenya at fault. It is the leadership of Kenya as a government at fault. And this fault is manifest domestically, regionally, continentally, and internationally. And it should not be that, because Kenya has the most transformative constitution on earth, much better than that of the United States of America, much better than that of the South African Republic. So why is it that we prevail in this violation of rights and liberties? And just to pick up from what my colleague has said, Kenya is culpable for the abduction and lawful rendition of Dr. Kizza Besigye from Nairobi to Uganda. And it cannot be, because we've seen senior government officials in Kenya, including lawyers, speakers of the two houses, say that we stand in solidarity with what President Suluhu is doing in Tanzania against her people and against our people. We stand in solidarity with what is happening in Uganda, with what President Museveni is doing against her people and our people.
Okay.
That is wrong. But come to the point, we are told that a task force has been put in place to address the issue of compensation. I do not agree with this proposition for several reasons. One, what is the legal framework to domicile this task force? That's number one. Number two, the Constitution has ascribed personal liability for violation of rights. And we have made tremendous progress through litigation to hold individuals in government personally responsible. Ask ourselves, why should any or all of us here be responsible for the murder of the mask seller by this rogue policeman called Baraza? Why? Why should I be responsible? What we need to do is to entrench the litigation structure which recognizes the right to life. If you've caused the loss of a life, that is a violation of the Constitution. It's also a tort, wrongful death.
Okay.
So we need these people to pay personally from their pockets, not from my pocket, not from your pocket. So to that extent, the initiative by President William Samoei Ruto is wrong. It has no foundation in law. It is escapist. It is intended to commoditize offenses that are committed by officers who should not be committing these offenses.
Prof, of course your academic work spans across the region. Generally, is it as concerning as it is in Kenya? And for us though, however, questions on the institutional capacity to investigate these cases and follow up on the victims, ensure that justice is served. But is it a case, a replica across the region of shrinking civic space, democracy on deterioration, and ideally the case of the deliberate targeting of dissidents?
I like the dichotomy that has been drawn between a culpable state and a highly democratic citizenry. And if we don't maintain that, we might all become victims, particularly when we begin to receive international condemnation of Kenya. Kenyans are guarding their democracy with their lives. That's why we are talking about people dying. People being killed, people being abducted. The people being abducted are the foot soldiers of our democracy, and they must be recognized as that. Why do I say so? Because the U.S. damning report on Kenya's impunity, as it's been called, is itself a turning point, however you want to look at it, because it has put Kenya on the spot. Remember, up to now, or until very recently, Kenya was the blue-eyed, the government of Kenya was a blue-eyed boy of the West, particularly America. I don't know whether you remember President William Ruto sitting on Joe Biden's seat.
Yeah.
It never get that, close in terms of the camaraderie of power.
At the Oval Office.
At the Oval Office, yes. Now, with that now, we have this. As thinking Kenyans, we, of course, will have to look at this transformation in the Capitol Hill and see what it means for us. That's why I have always called on us as Kenyans to take our bearing from our national interest. And it is our national interest that condemn the government of Kenya for killing its own, abducting its own, and regionalizing authoritarianism, because we are fully guilty of regionalizing. So we are not only championing economic regionalization and integration, we are also championing the regionalization and integration of authoritarianism. We are guilty of emboldening Uganda and its authoritarian response to its citizenry. We are guilty of basically emboldening Madame Suruhu there and her efforts to clamp down on the voices of democracy. And why am I saying this? Because Kenya is a leader, is a regional leader. We are actually the champion of the whole project of the East African community. And therefore, we must be judged harshly on that. The point one wants to make is that we must always remember to give kudos to the Kenyan citizens, the young girl here and others who have stood for democracy. But at the same time, she's my daughter. What's your problem? What's your problem? And if you begin to think about what Kenyans are doing for their own democracy, the constitution that has been mentioned, the protests that are going on, I think we must be able to draw that distinction, and it is important. Why? Because when the U.S. Congress begin to sit and make judgments on Kenya, they might use the broad brush of Kenya has done this, when in essence, we now become double victims or victim of a double jeopardy. The jeopardy of repression at home and the isolation internationally. So I think for policy reasons, we need to make that distinction. Tell America, the way you worked with the regime, now target it and leave us alone.
Okay. The lack of sophistication, the one-man show, the me, myself, and I politics that our president is organic of and for has come back to haunt him. All the chickens have come home to roost. The president's foreign policy is a disaster. And indicative of that is how our foreign minister and our prime cabinet secretary said one thing to the Americans, and the president said an absolutely different thing. So actually, the cabinet secretary was apologizing for the president's outburst against the Americans, which you saw in the newspapers and on the TVs. I think that President started his foreign policy on playing the bogeyman with the Americans. And I've said, Henry Kissinger once said that it is very difficult, it's dangerous to be an ally of the United States, but it is fatal to be a friend to the United States. And I think this has come now to roost. And I think that the politics that is exposed this is the struggle between the Chinese and the Americans over East Africa, and Kenya being a linchpin. And I think that President Ruto's antennae about foreign policy and the people who are with him have just bungled the whole thing. And the evidence is right in front of our eyes. He was given a non-NATO ally, and today the administration of the United States is saying that you're a corrupt person who is killing people in your country and we want nothing to do with you. China is not telling him that. China does not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. And it gives us money for construction. And we're caught between a rock and a hard place. Now, the policy reply of Mr. Ruto should be one that is nuanced, one that is sophisticated, one that understands how to swim in the muddy waters of international relations. He doesn't know it. And I don't think that Mr. Mudavadi knows it. And I think that the people who would know it, who would advise about it, are not in the realm of the UDA or the political party that rules this country. And I think that is a damning report on our country. Secondly, I think that these violations and abuse of human rights and the subsequent attempt for the government of Kenya to pay says that they're culpable. I mean, this is a huge mea culpa. And as my learned friend was saying there on the right, we were just talking in the green room just now, is that if these people have died and the state is taking responsibility, then, I mean, people have to be prosecuted. Who is it that is taking responsibility for the death of our children? Is it the state of Kenya? Is it the government of Kenya? Is it individuals? Is it the personnel? Who is it? The buck stops with the president. And I think that any young, smart lawyer today in town who has read our constitution would be in Milimani courts suing the state on behalf of those respondents and saying, this is a mea culpa. It says that you killed, and we want to hold people, and it's in the constitution, as my learned friend says, we want to hold individual people responsible for their deaths. Okay. That's very critical. Yeah.
Counsel, is it an admission of guilt?
It is an admission of liability and guilt, as you rightfully put, because on what basis will there be quantification of damages unless liability has been established?
Exactly.
And just to pick up from what Ahmed is saying, the president is picking a perilous path, because he's sanctioning the formation of this task. The ultimate buck will stop with him. And if prudence was to guide his decision-making, he will have left these individual policemen and women responsible for the killings, abductions, to face the law. But to the extent that he wants to shield them using public funds, monies intended for other useful purposes, then he's responsible. I mean, somebody may justifiably demand that he stands trial for these murders.
Yeah, and Sheila, given that the 60 who were killed, a majority, if not all of them, the youth who are taken to the street and who are demanded for good governance. So therefore, who decides who is the victim in this case?
I think I'm listening to the discussion here and I'm seeing myself, 10 years from now where we are asking the president, okay, you took responsibility for this now, because for every action there is a reaction. I mean, we don't live in a playground. We live in a state that has rules and laws and how we live together and how we dictate that. The fact that the government itself is coming out and saying we're going to compensate and yet we don't have an individual there, for me, it just sets precedent. It's setting a foundation because eventually we will have to find the person responsible. And if you're sitting there and you're the one who commissioned and wrote that check, well, you will be responsible. Because at the end of the day, we will not let this slide by. This is not just any other incident that we're going to let slide by. So for the sake of now, I let them build the task force, let them go ahead with the compensation, but they should not let themselves believe that they're off the hook because they wrote a check. We still need individuals responsible. And if you're in that task force or if you write that check or whatever your role and responsibility is, well, we will hold you accountable, because you cannot have youth going out, risking their lives, defending this country, And then now you have a task force with how much time were they given? That was also very
120 days.
Within 120 days.
Chop.
They're supposed to come up with a framework of how to then end up doing the compensation. When the biggest perpetrators of this acts was in fact the government itself. So I mean, I look at this and I'm thinking, at the end of the day, somebody will have to pay for this. So I think everybody involved should just be on standby. We will not let this go.
Yeah. Is it just, Prof, more than justice and politics? And the line seems to be so thin, is it?
It is, and this is really history repeating itself. You remember the jokes of the yesteryears talking about Moi setting a commission to investigate a commission in order to get another commission and all that. The commission strategy by a state to cover up for its own, responsibility and culpability in things that are happening. But times have changed because we've gone through that, and that's what Sheila is saying, that the memory of this country is not going to be the memory of the past when we forgot things and basically allowed things to go because we want to do them for the sake of peace. Yes, we forgot what Mzee Moi did in order to give ourselves a chance to give our own constitution, and so that we can now start from a clean slate. And we did that. We did away with Queen Elizabeth's constitution and gave ourselves a people's constitution. And the people's constitution means that you cannot cover up things using a commission of inquiry or whatever task force you want to put or whatever legal jargon you want to put. The reality of the matter is that we have been watching when Boniface Kariuki was shot down. We saw it with our own eyes. We saw who shot him, and we know where they were coming from. So the point, I think, for the purpose of nation healing, because we are also elders and we need to guide the nation forward, is for the government to come and say, we apologize to the people. Unequivocally, we apologize to the people. And that we'll ensure this will never happen again. And within that framework, this is what we want to do. And then let people see that the country has changed and moved on. Yeah. Otherwise, outside that framework, because remember, the whole question of peace and justice is an old question that we always have to address. How do we get to peace without justice? Or how do we get to peace with justice? Because if you don't merge the two, then there's a problem. We are not talking about what you call retributive justice. We're talking about restorative justice. When my village mate, Boniface Kariuki, we're burying him, the mother is crying there and saying, I've not just lost a son. We have lost about the only person in the family, a male. So I know that family very well. That they will now have to, I don't know what you do, because this was about the only son in that family. They were looking up to him not only for providence, but also for leadership and the other side. So in short, let's not go to Moi era tactics of trying to cover up things. Let's be open about these things. Yeah. And we are living in the age of social media, when everybody individually have evidence.
Right. Yeah. And everything is documented.
Yeah. Absolutely everything is documented. And I think it's also an indicator that who is supposed to be responsible to find the people who are guilty for this, the people who committed the crime. It's the state itself. Yeah. So the fact that they're not even producing a suspect or two is also an indication that they're failing at their own job. So, they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing this, essentially.
It's lack of sophistication and nuance. And I yield to my learned friend on the right.
Yeah, okay. When we get back from the break, ladies and gentlemen, then we proceed with this discussion. We have an hour to talk about what then this portends for.
Because I'm as angry as every other Kenyan about the state of our country.
Okay.
And,
when we get back from we will continue, Ahmed, on the state of our democracy, as well as what the president said yesterday on the institutional capacity of the bicameral parliament, and appears that he has concerns of the House committees now turning out to be money-minting centers. All that after the break. Stay tuned.